Welcome to the From WordPress to Statamic YouTube channel. Today we're going to look at navigation menus using the starter themes I installed in a previous video. First, let's explore the WordPress menus and then compare this to Statamic with Antlers. You can see I've got my starter theme open here, and the menu itself is basically just showing some sample content. And in the template that I have open, we're using this WP NavMenu function, which is outputting the menu that's assigned to the theme location menu 1. If you want to customize the output of this function, let's take a look at the documentation for WP NavMenu. And you can see that it takes this array of arguments, for setting menu class, and all the other things that you'd want to use to customize the output of your menu. Notable here is the walker. So if you wanted to add like fully custom markup for everything, this is probably what you would want to use. But for now, out of the box, this is what we can work with. And I'll note, for example, if I wanted to add a class to every menu item, the way that I would need to do that is initially I would go into my menus, and I would have to make sure that CSS classes is enabled so that I could actually add something here. If I disabled it, that field goes away. And then if I was to save that, then you can see this custom class. If I go back to my front end, inspect, then you can see custom class on the list item. But I don't have anything on the anchor tag itself. And I can only do one at a time. I can't do all of them together unless I was to modify my WP NavMenu function. If I wanted to do that, I need to go into my template functions and have something like this filter, which hooks into this function and adds this new link class argument, which lets me, when I'm outputting my menu here, I can use that now, called link class. I'll call it my custom link. And I'll save it and refresh. And now you can see I have a custom link on all of the actual anchor tags. So this is the only way that I can access this without building a custom menu from scratch or using the walker, which is also fairly cumbersome. Now, how would I actually go about doing that? Well, the way that we could do that is to lean on some of WordPress's core functions to get some raw data about our menu. So in my template functions here, I've got this custom menu builder function, which is inspired by something my friend Joey has done. It's a little bit modified, but at the end of the day, it does the same thing, which is to get some data about our menu and then structure it in such a way that it actually has children in a nested array, that sort of thing, instead of one sort of big flat unstructured object. And then we can iterate over it in our template, which I've done in this partial over here. So as you can see, I'm calling the function and passing in the menu location, and then I can just simply loop over this array and output it the way that I want with the markup that I want. So in my template here, I can bring that in. So PHP get template part, and that's going to be template parts / main menu. And then I can just get rid of this and refresh. And let's take another look. And here's my menu with the markup that I want. With all the classes that I want. But now, to get here, just to examine this function a little bit, I don't want to go too deep, but you can see it takes a lot of effort to structure it, to check whether or not it's apparent, or if it's not. There's a lot of work here to get it to look like what we want it to look. Otherwise, we're just sort of stuck with what WordPress gives us with its core functions and the way that you configure them, like we saw earlier in this video. Let's switch over to Statamic now and see just how easy it is to build a menu there. Now that I've got my Statamic project open, you can see I've got some basic pages here set up in the pages collection. Now there's a couple ways that we can build a menu quite easily with Statamic. The first one is to go over here to the left-hand navigation and just select that. And I can create a new navigation here. So I'll click Create Nav, and I'll call it Main Menu. And then Main Menu is the handle that it gives me, which I will reference in my template later. So hit Create, and I'll add a nav item. We'll call it home. And in this case, you need to know the path of the page or wherever you want to link to. And I know that I have a sample page. And I'll save that. And then the front end, I'll open up my layout template. And it's just as simple as using these tag pairs. So I can say nav and paste in the handle that we just created. And we'll do the closing. Nav. And inside there, put my list item. And I get the URL automatically. And I also get the title. And I'll just make sure that's wrapped inside of a list. And I want a UL there. I just give it some styles, class. Just make sure it has a bottom margin. Flex, we'll give it a gap of 4. And I can open back up on my home page, and there we go. Right, it's already structured for me, and I can do it a different way if I want, which is to say, not use a nav at all. I can go back into the template, and I can just go here and delete my nav altogether. If I do that, well, then this is probably going to break, but I don't need to have a nav defined. I can just use the collection. So I'll say collection pages, and I'll copy that. And it'll create the menu for me automatically. And there it is. But you'll notice the home isn't in there. It's treated as kind of a bit of a special link. You know, often that's going to be tied to your logo or something, but you can just as easily go in and add that. How much easier is that? We didn't have to write any functions. We didn't have to do hardly anything, and we get a nav just like that. You tell me if that's easier. Now, before we wrap it up, I realize we haven't tackled many of the more complicated use cases. For example, what if this menu has children? Well, in Statamic, it's just as easy as using a new tag pair. But first, I'll just close off this list item. And then I can use that tag pair here, children, and I'll make sure to close it. And this should also be wrapped inside of an unordered list. And then I can just copy my list item. And there, we're now outputting the nested children of this menu. With WordPress, the default NavMenu function handles this for us, but again, we're limited to the markup that it gives us, which is why we had to write that more complicated function to control the markup with a nested structure like this. If you wanted to do anything even more complicated with WordPress, we might want to use a plugin for a mega menu or something like that. But with Statamic, we can actually configure our menus just like we would with a collection. So if I was to go back into here, so I brought my menu back, and if I was to go on there, I can configure it. I can choose a blueprint that'll have field sets attached, so I can add all the details that I want to my navigation. I can even pair it with a collection. There's so much you can do so easily with navigations in Statamic. I don't know why we wouldn't choose this over something else like WordPress. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time.